Hey guys, so at least we're starting before midnight, which is better than I could have expected. But what I'm waiting for is the public version of Blake's response to the motion for summary judgment. They filed the one that's visible only to the parties, and so I'm waiting for the public version to come out. So there are two different things she had to respond to by tonight. One of them was the motion for summary judgment, and the other one was something that was filed a while back because she got an extension to respond to this by quite a bit. It was the motion for judgment on the pleadings. And that one we're not going to go over tonight. I want to go over just the summary judgment. And then I'm going to do that one separately tomorrow. But the motion for judgment on the pleadings essentially says, even if you take everything Blake Lively says as true, her claims will still fail as a matter of law. So that's the one that we're going to do tomorrow night, probably. So what I'm going to do now is the response to the motion for summary judgment. Then we have Stephanie Jones' response to the motion for summary judgment by Jen Abel, which is, I took a quick look at it and there are no words. There are no words for that. So I'm going to do that one actually first thing in the morning. I'm going to get up. Probably start around 8:15, 8:30 Eastern. We'll see. I'll get it in before it's time for work. So we're just going to do this one tonight. But let me show you what I've been waiting for here. No, that won't do. There we go. So you can kind of, I might have to zoom in a little bit so you can see a little better on this. But this is Pacer. And so we started here today at 10:38. And we're all the way down here now to 1061. And there's a whole bunch of mess here, which are the exhibits that are attached to Blake's response to the motion for judgment on the pleadings. I'm assuming there's going to be another set for the motion for summary judgment. But you can see down here, they've already filed the motion for summary judgment, the response to that, the opposition right here, but only the parties can see it. So we have to wait for that public version to come out. That's what I'm waiting for right now. But in the meantime, Stephanie Jones filed some support for her motion for spoliation sanctions, which I was not expecting. But it apparently has some interesting things in there. I wanted to look at something that somebody in the comments was pointing out while we're still waiting for that public version to come out. We have something to do. So let's take a look at that really quick. Okay. I'm going to make it easier so everyone can see this. 1 second. And this is a Stephanie Jones. This is in support of her motion for spoliation sanctions. Let me see, what page number was it? Just told me to go to. There's something about the rock in here that she wanted me to read. So we're going to do that. And I'm going to keep checking on that other document while we're doing that. Give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, it's not up yet. Okay. (1046-2). I control F to Johnson. Oh, I can just do this. Okay. So what is this exactly? Oh, this is an email. Okay. I see. This is an email to, and this is Justin and Wayfarer's counsel. So, and this is from obviously Stephanie Jones' counsel. Apparently there's some interesting stuff in here. So I'm going to take a look at it. Let me get a sip of water really quick. Okay. No, it's page 4. I don't know. That's the only references to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in here. I think it was page 2. No, it's page 4. I don't know. We're going to read the email, though. So I saw his name in here, so we're good. Jason, the Wayfarer parties' continued and repeated failures to provide timely and complete document productions, in this case, have prejudiced and continue to prejudice our clients. And remember that this is attached to a motion for sanctions based on Stephanie Jones, who, like Blake Lively, who claimed the same thing, says that the Wayfarer parties got rid of evidence intentionally, basically. Okay. And then they were also complaining about how they have failed to provide things in a timely manner, blah, 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 blah. We've heard it all. Okay. As you well know, the deadline for substantial completion of document production in this case was initially July 1st. The Wayfarer parties missed that deadline, producing a minuscule number of documents before that date. The court subsequently set a deadline that the production of documents in response to requests served before July 15th be completed by July 25th. Why don't you just get to the fucking point? Sorry, this is really... You subsequently assured us that the Wayfarer parties would complete documents by August 27th. Okay. Including promising on August 11th to search signal messages. The signal messages were the basis for the spoliation claims. So they're saying that because they failed to turn off the auto delete function on Signal, which lots of people use. Our government agencies have used Signal. Like lots of people, especially in the public relations space, for privacy reasons, use Signal. It auto deletes after a certain period of time. That's like, it's not a weird thing to do, right? This is something that's very, very common. Lots of people use Signal. Some people just use it for day-to-day conversation. You know what I mean? But lots of people use it for business. It's not nefarious, and there's some argument over whether or not they were actually notified that they were supposed to, maintain those communications as far back as November 2023, at which point they would have had to turn off the auto deletes to keep all those messages. But that doesn't really make sense because the initial preservation request went out in December of 2024. Yeah. Okay. So it was over a year later. Anyways, that's I don't need to give you guys a history lesson. My bad. Hold on, let me refresh because I got to keep doing that while we're. If you guys are watching this back later on, I'll put a timestamp where we actually start reading the summary judgment motion, but I can't do that till it actually pops up on the docket. So just look for that if you want to skip over this stuff and you're watching on replay. If you're watching right now, sucks. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. So, okay. So, including promising to search Signal messages. The Wayfarer parties did not and belatedly informed us that they did not search Signal messages as agreed and required. Now, after nearly half a dozen depositions have been taken, the Wayfarer parties assert unilaterally that they need yet more time to produce documents that should, by court order, have been produced months ago. So they're still arguing about this now, I believe. Or there's some sort of issue, and I think it's some RFAs or something. There's some dispute over that, but I have to read into it, and I've been so bogged down in like this stuff that I haven't had a chance to catch up on that. So when things start to slow down, and they will, especially like once all this stuff is in, as far as the pretrial motions and the responses to that, it's going to slow down. And at that point, I'm going to go back and go through some of the other stuff that I never got to, just so I can spend more time on it. I'm not like rushing through shit. So anyways, so they're still arguing over stuff like this at this point. So just Monday, September 8th, the Wayfarer parties compounded their discovery failures and the prejudice they are inflicting. On that one day, months after substantial completion, the Wayfarer parties produced tens of thousands of documents. They also defied yet another court order in Lively v. Wayfarer Studios, failing to produce Signal data as ordered and taking the liberty of granting themselves an extension under the guise of seeking one from the court, which the court swiftly denied. I don't know if that's accurately characterized. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have the whole context here. So this is something I'm gonna have to come back to. I just want to get basically to the meat of it, which is on the second page here, apparently. So why don't I skim over some of this shit? So they were just saying, like, complaining, you're late. You're still late. Now you're more late. And I'm mad because you're late. Like, so there's really not too much to see here. The MSJ is going to be probably 200 plus pages with exhibits. So this is just an opposition. Blake didn't file a motion for summary judgment. She missed the deadline. She said she was going to. Not surprised that she didn't. That would have been a really odd thing to do for a plaintiff to file an MSJ on a sexual harassment claim. I feel like that would have been a really odd look. But you made a point of saying that she was going to do it because she used that as part of her request to get an extension on responses to the motion for judgment on the pleadings. And so she was like, oh, no, I don't have time to do all this. This is prejudicing me because I have so much to do. And I'm also trying to file a motion for summary judgment. And then she just never did it. So basically, she used it as a tool to get her way, which, is that allowed? Apparently, I guess. I mean, there are things that you can get away with that I don't necessarily think are morally correct, but that's subjective, right? And also, what are you going to do about it? Because if you start to crack down on stuff like that, then you're actually at some point possibly going to, prejudice someone who actually did need some sort of accommodation or extension. So, yeah, if that makes any sense. So they did limit the number of pages that Blake was allowed to give in response to motions, the Justin's motion for summary judgment, which is what we're about to look at. I think it was either 30 pages or 60 pages, but it's not going to be 200 pages. There are no more giant Texas filings, which are 1,000 pages. Thank God. We've been past that for months. So I don't expect it to be anything that's going to take me all night. I do not miss those bulky filings and trying to read them until 5 a.m, but Okay. Anyways, I mean, there might be hundreds and hundreds of pages of exhibits, sure, but some of it's gonna be stuff we've seen before. So where's the headline that BL missed her deadline to file? I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, yeah. But let's be honest, unless Blake or Ryan gives the information via their publicist to TMZ or People or whoever, they're not paying attention to this shit. I mean, that's just the truth. Okay. This pattern of discovery, defiance, and deficiency is materially prejudicing JonesWorks' ability to litigate this case. On September 8th, JonesWorks deposed Tara Hanks, Wayfarer Studios' president, without the benefit of the tens of thousands of pages of documents Wayfarer produced that same day, or of the signal data the Wayfarer parties still have not produced. On September 5th and 9th, JonesWorks deposed 2 third parties, a current and former employee of the agency group, that's TAG, and TAG is run by Melissa Nathan. Melissa Nathan, who some people consider a controversial figure as she ran crisis PR on the Depp case, the Depp versus Heard case. So it depends on where you fall on that case and how you felt about Johnny Depp's crisis PR. That could probably tell you how you feel about Melissa Nathan. I didn't really follow that case too closely. I got the highlights. I saw some of it, but I didn't actually watch the trial. I didn't watch the whole trial. So, there's a lot that I don't. I'm not judging her based on that, basically. There's a lot that I don't know about what happened in the PR game there with Johnny and Amber Heard. Okay. Okay. So both of these former employees, or one was a current and one was a former. I'm not sure if one of them is still current. They testified to the use of Signal to communicate. Right, including Melissa Nathan's surreptitious campaign to defame JonesWorks and Miss Jones. Okay, well, we haven't established that existed, I don't believe. But, I did see somewhere when they were arguing about Katie Case and what Katie Case had said in her deposition, and, they're now claiming that Melissa Nathan was untruthful or whatever in her deposition. That's what they're trying to say, or they're trying to establish there's like a lack of credibility there. There is some argument that Katie Case, said something to the effect that Melissa Nathan had a hand in this campaign against Stephanie Jones. It amounted to like a couple of websites, I think, and a Twitter account, which honestly I don't think anyone would have paid, too much attention to if she hadn't gone all psycho and drafted a huge lawsuit, you know what I mean? And then went scorched earth with the whole handing messages over to Blake Lively thing. Honestly, Stephanie Jones' reputation probably could have, as it was, could have survived as it was, if she had not responded to those websites the way that she did, which is interesting for somebody who is a publicist. You would think that you would know how to respond to that better, but, maybe not. I don't know. Lauren, did you watch Spiegel yet? Huh? What are you talking about? Okay. Give me 1 second here. All right. Yet the Wayfarer parties have not even begun production of signal messages. Okay. Those depositions, the deposition of Katie Case and Brianna Coslow, that was the current and former employee of TAG, who worked for Melissa Nathan. Those depositions have also confirmed that Wayfarer Party's productions, to the extent they have made them, are deficient. For example, Ms. Case testified that, 1, she participated in a signal chat with Jed Wallace and Melissa Nathan regarding their scheme to defame Jonesworks. So when they say that, right, they say regarding their scheme to defame Jonesworks. I don't know exactly what was said and exactly what that entails. Like, they were going to frame it obviously as a scheme to defame Jonesworks, but is that actually what it was? You know what I mean? She could have just testified regarding, stuff that they said about Stephanie Jones in their communications. I don't know if it was a scheme to defame her publicly or anything like that. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Is the truth. So Ms. Nathan sent an email to Business Insider as part of her effort to prompt a negative article about Jonesworks. So that's kind of interesting. I wonder if they have the email in an exhibit anywhere. I haven't gone through all of this yet. This is the first I'm seeing of this. This just came out tonight, right before these summary judgment responses came out. Sorry. Let's see. And 3, she sent TAG PR's statement of work to Miss Abel's rwacommunications.com email address. Okay. The Wayfarer parties have produced none of these documents despite their obvious relevance. In addition, just yesterday, Ms. Coslow testified that Ms. Nathan sent an email to a Variety reporter with statements attacking Jonesworks and Ms. Jones, and that she participated in a message thread with Mr. Friedman and Mr. Hurian, neither of whom was her attorney regarding this case. Mitra Hurian, another one of Justin Baldoni's attorneys, she came in a little bit later, I think, but she's actually an old family friend of Justin's. So the Wayfarer parties have not produced these communications either. Okay. Additionally, given Ms. Case's testimony about her and Ms. Nathan's involvement in the websites and social media pages disparaging Ms. Jones on behalf of prospective TAG client Dwayne What? Dude. No. No. She didn't actually just blame. She didn't actually just blame Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson for mean websites about her. Oh, that's fucking awesome. Okay. That's just so fucking funny because she uses Dwayne Johnson in multiple documents and Tom Brady and the like to kind of establish herself as this high-profile, accomplished PR representative, PR, whatever, business owner and all that. And then here she is saying, but it was Dwayne Johnson. It was Dwayne Johnson who made the mean websites about Stephanie Jones. God. Okay. So like I said earlier, I took a look at, this is so hard to, it's so hard to explain Stephanie Jones and everything she's done and is doing continuously without a scatterbrain. Let me just show you the first bit, okay, of Stephanie Jones. Stephanie Jones, what we're going to go over in the morning. Stephanie Jones' opposition to Jen Abel's motion for summary judgment. Hang on. Just the first line. And it's got the same energy it always has when it comes to Stephanie Jones against Jennifer Abel, because Stephanie Jones hates Jennifer Abel. In fact, the only person I think Stephanie Jones hates more than Jennifer Abel is Melissa Nathan. What is going on with my hair tonight, then? Hang on, let me... There we go. Andy, give me this hat. Okay. So... Anyways, keep in mind that she's now not just blaming Jen Abel, Justin Baldoni, Melissa Nathan, all kinds of other people. Now Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and then she's always got that crazy energy, right? That crazy my psychic told me it was you kind of thing going on. That I'm manic and I don't go to bed at night thing, and I just stay up thinking about who's wronged me and which kind of way. The first sentence of Stephanie Jones' opposition that she just filed tonight is Jennifer Abel is speaking out of both sides of her mouth. Oh. I don't know if that lady's ever relaxed a day in her fucking life, but it sure doesn't sound like it. But I would be shocked if Dwayne The Rock Johnson was behind a Stephanie Jones smear campaign. And if Dwayne The Rock Johnson was behind these websites about Stephanie Jones, which why would he be? Because the websites were primarily about how she treated her employees and what it was like in the workplace. So why the fuck would Dwayne The Rock Johnson have anything to do with those websites, or why would he commission those websites? I sincerely doubt that Dwayne The Rock Johnson, is taking the time of day to have some sort of middle school meltdown and be like, here's what we're going to do. Stephanie Jones made me feel bad. She hurt my feelings. So we're going to write bad things about her on a Twitter account with a watermelon as a profile picture. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? No, I'm sorry. There's no way that man has the time. Oh, wow. Okay. All right, let me check back on the docket to see if that other thing came out yet. Nope, not yet. Hold on. 52. Okay. Yeah. No, sorry. I'm still looking to see if that public version of the other documents come up yet. It hasn't. So I guess we're just gonna keep going into this unhinged shit. And like I said, if you're watching this on replay and you want to skip this, we can put a timestamp here so you can do that later. It's up. I don't know about that. So the response to the motion for judgment on the pleadings is up. I don't see the response to the motion for summary judgment by Blake. The one from Stephanie Jones is up. We're looking at the one from Stephanie Jones, or something attached to it. Actually, no, this was attached to her sanctions motion. She did a lot tonight too. But we're waiting for one last thing, which is what I wanted to look at tonight. So give me one sec. I'll double check right now. Yeah, no, that's Jones Works. Here, I'll show you what I'm looking at. So I just redid this too. Yeah, so selected parties only. So we can't see that. So that's what I'm saying. I'm waiting for the public version. So like up here, there's a selected parties version for everything, right? And then the public version. So we've been waiting for the public version. It's past midnight in New York. Yes, but these things take a little while to process and come up. When Justin filed the motion for summary judgment, it was so bulky and there was so much attached to it that it took, God, it had to be like at least 1 o'clock by the time all that got finished uploaded. That's not what's going to happen right now. I don't think it's going to, because there's a page limit to this shit, right? But yeah, so we're just going to keep going through this madness with Stephanie Jones until the document I want comes up. And I'll keep refreshing this and paying $3 every fucking time until it does, won't I? Oh, by the way, thank you, Kim, for the Pacer bucks. I don't know if she's still with us. She's probably not, because she sent this a while ago. So, but thank you, Kim. 152 exhibits. Is that all? Yeah. Anyways, so the moral of the story here is that Dwayne The Rock Johnson is crusading against Stephanie Jones by creating an anonymous Twitter account and a website called StephanieJonesLies.com, and he's talking bad about her with an AI fruit for a profile picture. Does this sound Like a mentally well professional to you? Like, what the fuck is happening? Expect Blake's to be twice as big as Wayfarer. So there's a page limit on the actual memorandum, the response, right? So, but the exhibits, I mean, yeah, sure, there could be a fuck ton of that, and I will sit here until it's ready. So if it comes to it, we'll just read the other one, Judgment on the Pleadings response, while we wait for that one, because I'm not about to like fold and go to bed, right? I mean, what? Why would I do that? I've sat here until 6 a.m. before. I'll do it again. Okay. Anyways, besides, as long as I'm reading shit like this, I'm like, how could I go to bed after that? All right. Anyways, I think I've recovered from what I just read. Not like mentally, but I caught my breath. Anyways. Okay. I just want to read that one more time. Additionally, given Ms. Case's testimony about her and Ms. Nathan's involvement in the websites and social media pages disparaging Ms. Jones on behalf of prospective tag clients, Dwayne Johnson, we also expect you to conduct a manual search and produce all communications or documents between any of Ms. Nathan, Ms. Case, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Wallace, or anyone else at tag about Ms. Jones, Jonesworks, or relating to the disparaging websites or related social media pages for the Business Insider article, including any payment in connection with the sites and pages. Dude, she's about to drag Dwayne Johnson into this lawsuit. So what happens when they do that, right? What happens when they do drag Dwayne Johnson into this lawsuit? All of a sudden, it's not just Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni. All of a sudden, it's this crazy, paranoid smear campaign accusation against two, totally separate celebrities, right? One of them that I feel like is pretty popular, I guess. I mean, I don't know how big a following Dwayne Johnson has. I know it's substantial. He's a movie star, right? And among other things, but I mean, how are people going to respond to that? All of a sudden, it's not these people who have all these criticisms against Justin Baldoni. It's like, oh wait, it wasn't just because Justin Baldoni is like a weird, creepy guy. These women who are making this accusation are fucking psycho. Okay, like, I don't know if this is I don't know if this is the right move, but okay. Anyways. Okay. Jonesworks reserves its right to pursue all available remedies for the prejudice caused by the Wayfarer party's refusal to participate in discovery in good faith, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Okay. I haven't seen this before, guys, so bear with me. I'm going to kind of skim through some of this. So they're still arguing about signal messages in these. I don't really think I need to read any more about signal messages. I'm quite clear on how I feel about that and how they feel about that. I feel like I'm pretty well versed. Okay. What is this? Interrogatory responses and objections, many of which are boilerplate and overbroad. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to skim that. We agree to apply these search terms, blah, blah, blah. Just bear with me a second while I find this. Yes, a virtual tourist. I know that the response to the MJOP is out. I'm going to do that tomorrow night. I want to do the motion for summary judgment tonight. Then tomorrow morning, I have the Jones response to the motion for summary judgment. So I have a way of doing this that I kind of planned out. So it's not that I won't get to it. It's just not going to be right now unless I absolutely have to. Right. So. Okay. Let me just get through the next exhibit because they're starting to bore me with this shit here. I do not need to hear about another privilege log today. I'm good. I'm starting to feel violated by the number of times I have had to read about privilege logs in a 24-hour period. Okay, so here's a message from Stephanie Jones, which we've seen it mentioned before. I don't know if I've ever actually read the text. It says, I just downloaded Tara, and I don't think she means I just downloaded Tara. Tara Hanks is the president of Wayfarer Studios. I think she meant she just, caught Tara up to speed on some stuff. I just downloaded Tara on some dark stuff, unless that's like a way of saying that I don't know about, in which case it shouldn't be, and you're all doing it wrong. Okay? I just downloaded, I say it again, Tara on some dark stuff, but please, we cannot work with Melissa Nathan. There is a lot of dirty work she has done, very dirty, not someone we would want in Justin's orb or for Blake's PR to use as a weapon against him. Now, there's two ways to look at this. First, it's, Stephanie Jones is concerned because of Melissa Nathan's history, possibly because people make connections with Johnny Depp, that Johnny Depp does get a lot of criticism, even though he does have a lot of support as well. And that tying Justin to the same person that Johnny Depp was tied to during his trial with Amber, that could cause a problem. So that would be my interpretation of this message if it came from a sane person. Okay. This is coming from Stephanie Jones. Now, let's try to remember what was going on with Stephanie Jones during this time. So, Jen Abel and Wayfarer have alleged that Stephanie Jones started going down this very crazy, manic spiral, especially in the office, to where she was saying all sorts of crazy things, including having her psychic come in and saying something about Jen Abel getting pregnant, I think with twins, when Jen Abel was having fertility issues, and that was highly inappropriate. And there was just all kinds of crazy stuff, calling people at all hours, trying to make people prove to her that they were sick, like by FaceTiming them and shit like that. Just all kinds of crazy stuff. Hey, Shizzy Wiznut, what's up? I haven't seen you in a long time, man. I hope you're good. Thank you for the raid. Appreciate that. So yeah, Stephanie Jones is acting crazy already. And so Wayfarer at this point wants to continue working with Jennifer Abel, who's been the primary person working for JonesWorks on their account. Stephanie Jones is for some reason now trying to insert herself and have a hand in what they were doing. She normally only concerns herself with her higher profile clients, such as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, maybe. But I guess he was busy writing mean tweets about Stephanie Jones. So she said, hey, I think I'll pay attention to Justin Baldoni. Okay? And so she comes in and she just starts fucking everything up for fun. And at that point, they're like, dude, we can't listen to anything this lady says because they, as the client, Wayfarer, is asking Stephanie Jones, hey, don't get involved. We don't want you. Okay? And she refused, and she inserted herself anyways, like a weird psycho hurricane person, if a hurricane could be a person, right? Okay. And so she starts fucking things up. She causes this huge explosion and all this tension between Blake and Justin after they had come up with this truce. And so when Stephanie Jones, with all that in mind, when Stephanie Jones is telling them, don't work with Melissa Nathan, she's very dirty. Like, given all of Stephanie Jones' behavior in the context of Hurricane Stephanie, would you take this message seriously, or would you think, wow, Stephanie really hates Melissa Nathan and she's fucking crazy? Right? So this warning quite possibly fell on deaf ears for very good reason. In fact, if she was as manic as she is described, she probably sounded like a lunatic while she was saying it on the phone. So it's not hard to see why this message from Stephanie Jones isn't the flex that she thinks it is. That was the end of my rant. One second. And hey, thank you everyone who came from Shizzy's. But hey, yeah, man, send me a text. I'll be around. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, so I'll try to see what I can do. Thanks. Give me 1 second here, then we'll move on. Okay. 1 second. No, we have a letter that just popped up, but we don't have the other document yet. We're just waiting for it. Don't worry about it. There's going to be a declaration with lots of exhibits attached to, so it's going to take a little bit. But we're we're finding our way here. We have some stuff that we can do in the meantime, right? Okay, so apparently Blake filed the opposition under seal. So that's not actually how that works. So there's a version filed to where only the selected parties can see it. And that's the same with like all of these documents. So with the motion for judgment on the pleadings, the opposition to that as well, there was a version for the parties that came out. And then there was the public version with everything filed under seal. So there will be a public version with the, sealed exhibits removed. We're just waiting for it to come up. So, but that's how it's been with everything this whole time. There's always a party version, right? The things that the people are, privy to that we are not. And then there's a public version with redactions, sealed stuff, whatever. Okay. Everyone called it saying it would just be all black redacted. No, I think we're just misunderstanding that, guys. But yeah. Okay. Anyways. What is this? The message to Tara from Stephanie that we were just talking about? Okay. Hi, Tara. I know you and Steph connected. Okay, so this is dude, who is this from? Hi, Tara. I know you and Steph connected, and she gave some recommendations, but I want to make sure you guys have what you need to bring on a crisis team. We can be available to brief them and bring them up to speed. Happy to make calls to let us know. So that's probably, that's from Tara to somebody else. Oh no, this is to Tara. Guys, this is so confusing. I don't know. That was harmless though, so it doesn't matter. Okay. Okay. PR thread with tag. I'm assuming we've probably seen a lot of this stuff. So, but we can skim over it. Okay. Yeah, we're good. That's the scenario planning document, which we've seen plenty. One second, guys. Okay. Well, let me double check on this right now, because people are saying she just filed a full sealed version of this response. That doesn't make any sense though. I don't think that's actually what's going on here. So let me just double check this real quick. Give me 1 second. I'm going to mute myself while I do that. Sorry, but I'm going to be quiet for 1 minute. Okay. Okay, so this just came up. So I don't think. Yeah, I still think that we're just waiting for the public version. Okay. So see how it always says there's a version for selected parties, and then there's the regular one that comes out. So like up here. where it says selected parties memorandum of law in opposition for the motion for judgment on the pleadings, right? And then here's the public version, memorandum of law in opposition for the motion and judgment on the pleadings. So we're just waiting for, because we have the parties version right here. We're just waiting for the public version. And these always say, so right here it says file under seal, but there's still a public version here. So I think people are just misunderstanding what's going on with the docket. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't really know how else to I don't know how else to explain it. So I sincerely doubt that she was allowed to seal the whole thing. You can't really do that. Okay. Because there's going to be like stuff in there that we've already seen, arguments that she's responding to, that like paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff that's not like privileged material. It doesn't make any sense at all for her to be able to file the entire document without anyone seeing anything. So it doesn't make sense. Okay. But yeah, so this just came up 1066, so I'm hoping that it won't be too much longer before the other one does. Okay. Let me go back to this. We're just kind of scrolling through this stuff. Okay. So this is between Katie Case and Jen Abel. So Katie Case, the former employee of TAG. I think she's the former employee, right? One of them, Brianna Coslow and Katie Case, is a current employee and one is a former, right? So it's a thread between Katie Case and Jen Abel, which is supposed to mean something. So making sure I'm okay sending the SOW to your JonesWorks email. And then Jen Abel says, send it to jennifer@rwacommunications.com. And I think this might have been after Jen Abel already resigned from JonesWorks. I'm not sure. Can somebody correct me on that if I'm wrong? If anybody in the chat can tell me what date she submitted her resignation to JonesWorks. Because one of you guys has to know. Somebody always does. But yeah. Okay. Jen says, I'm going to have Tara call Steph and let her know. So it's not like this was a secret done behind Stephanie Jones' back. Then we can be above board. So why are you acting like... Okay. So why is Stephanie Jones acting like this was some sort of conspiracy? You got it. I'm glad I double checked. Just always like to check. Okay. We joke that the P and PR really stands for paranoid. Well, it does if you work for JonesWorks. Okay. Okay. I don't think there's too much of substance there. Okay. Yeah, we're not going to read through that. Okay, so this is a message from Jamie Heath. And this is, while all this kind of friction between the Lively team and the Wayfarer team is going on. And he's always kind of the voice of reason, as a lot of people have seen. But Jamie says, I don't like the idea that there is continued cannibalization from within the same side. Meaning JonesWorks, for example, Stephanie, and the Crisis team, which is Melissa Nathan's team. And JonesWorks, not a fan of Tag and Melissa Nathan, but there's some friction there, obviously, that Jamie and Wayfarer are not liking. He says, I only want us to be communicating with people who are working together and not with ones who are undermining others within our team. Stephanie Jones, is casting doubt, and that can have an effect like poison. Uh-huh. Okay. I'm going to bed. Let's chat more tomorrow about this. But yeah. Okay. And this is redacted, of course. It says, thanks, Tara. So bummed by this and the lack of support for Justin, but we forge ahead. But look at the comments. And they're looking at this. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Something about Blake and Justin's feud on the set. Okay. I don't think we need to go over that. Okay. So this is just like something about, or it's an email about what happened between Blake and Justin on set. They're just trying to correct something. Okay. As a PR for them and you, Melissa Nathan says, this is fabulous. And then she says, as Leslie, go fuck yourselves. Leslie is, sorry, Blake's PR person. So sorry about that. I just brain froze when I was trying to remember her name. Okay. Any word on statements? So I think this has to be, context dictates this has to be about leaving Jonesworks, right? It says a big giant fuck you no, thank fucking God we're going to war. I feel so alive. Okay. Starring the rest of the cast are not speaking director. Okay. So they're saying this is something that Leslie placed in the New York Post on behalf of Blake. It says Blake Lively was given final edit approval on It Ends With Us to make the movie more feminine. According to sources, the star and the rest of the cast are not speaking to director and co-star Justin Baldoni, and Brandon Sklenar particularly has a problem with him over, we're told. Okay, I don't understand that. Although not greenlit as we predicted, there will now be a battle over the sequel It Starts With Us, as Baldoni owns the rights to the film. But due to the rift with Lively, it's unknown what will happen yet. A source said there were 2 edits, and the studio went with a more feminine edit. Blake had the right to do that. She had final edit approval. Well, that, Leslie, is not exactly what went down, is it? My God. But yeah, it was pretty clear that Blake and Ryan wanted the rights to the sequel. This was probably, if it wasn't her most successful movie for Blake, who was substantially less successful than Ryan, but still successful in her own right. I know people, say that she's not really, compared to Ryan, she's not much, right? But she is still, for somebody working in the industry, quite successful. And I won't say otherwise because I know that's true, right? So maybe not by a Ryan Reynolds standard, but by the standard of just like anyone working in the industry, she's quite successful compared to most, right? But this movie might have been her most successful, or at least one of, right? And so they definitely wanted to fight for the sequel. They wanted control of the sequel, which is why a lot of this went down the way that it did. And they tried to force their hand into that 17-point document and basically, and I know that it's in a colloquial sense, extort them, right? With that. Not in a legal term, right? But like in the colloquial sense, that was a way of sort of extorting Wayfarer. Okay. One sec. Okay. Jen Abel says, it was not a more feminine edit, it was just a different edit. Leslie is working overtime. Okay. And she wasn't given final edit approval. She said she wouldn't promote the film if it wasn't one that she could personally get behind, for example, if it wasn't her edit, even though Justin's scored higher in their focus group screenings. So they're trying to make Wayfarer say this. And Jen Abel's like, what the fuck? Right. Even though, as we saw in Wayfarer's complaint, which was the countersuit, which was now dismissed, Justin's edit scored higher in the focus groups. Okay. So that's the fact, however you want to spin it. Okay. And then Jen says, can we just say, sources say Justin understood how important it was to have Blake support the film, so he and Wayfarer gave the okay for her to have her say in the final edit, or is that too much? Okay. So he and Wayfarer gave the, yeah, okay. I mean, I can see why she would go that route. Okay. Her say in the final edit to ensure it had the proper female gaze when telling Lily's story. Okay. This shit is absurd what Leslie is doing. Don't love the shirtless thing right now, to be honest. I don't know what the shirtless thing is. Huh. Well then. Let me check this one more time. Okay. Somebody from Hollywood Reporter's reaching out. I assume you know this is Pam McClintock from the Hollywood Reporter. We have a mutual friend, Sarah Rothman, and I know we have spoken before. I'm reaching out because my colleague, Carly, has been covering the it-ins with us behind the scenes drama and understands on good authority that Baldoni retained your services in recent weeks, or maybe a month or more. Would you be willing to talk to her or myself, even if on background only? And they're like, hell no. Okay. Here they're saying ready for Brian. So I guess they were starting to rope or think about legal stuff, right? Okay. And then this is when it comes out that Justin hired Melissa Nathan and that she was Johnny Depp's crisis PR person, right? Let me just go through these really quick, guys. MDR R2Q, thank you for the $20. Tonight, when in doubt / disgusted, just quote Emily Baldoni, the best quote of the case. She made this bed, now she can fucking live in it. Let's fight. Yeah, no, Emily's a trooper. All right, Bodine 444, thank you for the $20. Thank you, Lauren. Love your dedication. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Bixio Music, thank you for the 10 for your Pacer Fund or Coffee Fund. Thank you. Appreciate you. C Journalist, thank you for the 5. Sorry for the scare. Hopefully we see the doc tonight. Pacer Fund. Yeah, we'll just keep waiting, I guess. Keep waiting. And if nothing comes up in the next hour or so, then maybe we'll revisit what's going on here. And I'll just go to the other document that came out. So but thank you. Appreciate that. And April, thank you for the $1 super sticker. Thanks very much, guys. Okay. All right. So they're really upset because it got out that Justin hired Melissa Nathan. And then, of course, the press, the Hollywood Reporter here is sort of framing it in a way that could cause some negative sentiment among people who really don't like Johnny Depp. So they're going to start comparing Johnny Depp to Justin Baldoni. Right. As we know, that is exactly what happened among a lot of people. So I just know Stephanie Jones is going to weaponize this. And she certainly fucking did. So I can't believe they wrote that story. At least it doesn't mention Scooter, but still, I'm guessing, is that Scooter Braun? Because I've been hearing Scooter Braun, getting brought up. But this part right here is highlighted, which makes me think it was maybe supposed to be redacted. I don't know, guys. All right. Jamie is still on with Ashley. Okay. He's being attacked publicly. He brought on an expert to help. End of day. I'm sorry. She's a fucking bitch. It's talking about Stephanie Jones. Do you think this makes him look guilty, though? Honestly, nothing against you at all. So she's saying nothing against you, Melissa, but do you think that his association with you makes you look guilty? It's an honest question, okay, and a good question, but honest opinion. Melissa says, honestly, no. Everyone hires crisis. Leslie is crisis. If it wasn't me, whoever you would have hired would have been also mentioned as she used as a tactic. It's trades as well. Fans don't read trades. Dude, that's not how this turned out, is it? And I know she says no, it doesn't make him look guilty, but before his side of the story came out in the lawsuit, in their countersuit, this did kind of look bad for him to a lot of people. I wasn't really paying attention to this at that time, so I didn't have any thoughts about this, obviously, but lots of people I know did have a negative opinion because Melissa Nathan has that connection to Johnny Depp. And because people who are like die-hard Amber Heard fans or really don't like Johnny Depp will automatically make that connection and make that assumption that basically Johnny Depp equals Justin Baldoni, and they couldn't be more different. That's not a commentary on my thoughts on Johnny Depp at all, because I really don't know enough about Johnny Depp to say too much, but I know enough to say that he and Justin are two very different people, obviously, and their situations are very, very different. I mean, Justin and Blake, obviously Justin couldn't stand her, right? And they didn't have a relationship. He's like, the last thing I want to do is kiss this woman. He feels like trapped, right? There was a point in time where Johnny and Amber were married. They were involved romantically. That became very physically abusive. Like there's really not much similarity there at all, if you ask me. But people do make the comparison, and I think that's mostly because a lot of people will make the argument that both Justin and Johnny were seen as kind of the villain of the situation, right? And the bad guy. And then stuff came to light that we find out a lot of the accusations against him were not necessarily true, right? So, okay. Yes, Scooter Braun gave Tag's rights to Melissa Nathan. That's why Stephanie Jones hates her. Huh. Okay. Gotcha. Anyways, so like I said, the thing with Melissa Nathan, she says everyone hires crisis. Fans don't read trades, but that's not how it turned out. The fans actually read a lot of this stuff because Blake went to the New York Times and this blew up the way that it did, and then all of a sudden it was an issue that Melissa Nathan was the person doing crisis PR for Justin Baldoni. I'm not saying that I actually think that he's guilty of anything for hiring Melissa Nathan. I'm not saying she's not effective at her job. I'm just saying people did make the association there in a negative way. Okay. Jamie saw the article and doesn't care. He says it says nothing, just that we retained her for crisis. Jamie Heath is a very level-headed guy, it seems. And I'm like, yeah, that is all Melissa. She's really good. So he doesn't care. Fuck you, Leslie. That seems to be a recurring theme of this text thread. Fuck you, Leslie. Like, I'm fine with it, Okay. Also, we rep amazing people too, not just the people in trouble. Stephanie Jones has repped many, many men that have done terrible things that I've even helped her fix. You can't win in this business. You can't win in this business is probably true, man. Okay. I was trying to figure out what this meant. Oh, thank God, I feel so bad I put you in any situation. Devote. I was like, what is devote? Devote, I guess, is some sort of weird slang for devastated. Just say devastated. I mean, what? Okay. I'm now worried what Stephanie is going to say. Not that they care at all, but she's going to try to use this in some capacity. She absolutely will, says Melissa Nathan, but also let's compare stories, Stephanie. Okay. So here's a text between Stephanie and Tara, right? So this is Stephanie, I guess, writing to Tara. Or no, so it's between Jen Abel and Tara. So they're talking about Stephanie Jones. Tara says, and remember, Tara Hanks is the president of Wayfarer, says, from Stephanie right now, her first outreach since last Friday. How should I respond? And the text that Stephanie sent her said, were you aware that the Hollywood Reporter was doing a story on Justin hiring Melissa? Jen says, I was waiting for this. The real story here is that Leslie, Blake's rep, planted this to weaponize the fact that we've hired Crisis. But as far as a response, I defer to you with whatever you're comfortable. But I would say something along the lines of, yes, Jamie and team are aware, and are also aware that this was reduced to a more straightforward announcement, that she was retained amidst the crisis. It was a planted story along those lines. Okay. And then this is where Melissa Nathan, I think she was making a joke, but Stephanie Jones thinks this is very serious. So, look, there is a world in which maybe Melissa Nathan was talking about the Business Insider piece. I think there was some context there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Melissa Nathan like went out of her way to like say we need to get these magazines to write kill stories on Stephanie Jones. Somebody from Business Insider, I believe, reached out and asked them something about Stephanie Jones. That's the best of my recollection. I will have to go back through the publicist documents to double check on the Business Insider piece and how that all happened. But I do remember some text messages and some more context that's actually was actually provided than what they've included here, than what Stephanie's included here. So here it just says, Stephanie, are you aware there's a kill story dropping this week on you? And if you hadn't blown us up, we would not have been in such a bad place. Okay. And then there's another press inquiry. It says Justin Baldoni hires Melissa Nathan. Okay. And they're like, why is this such a big story? This is the maddest account for so many reasons. Okay. It's normal people don't even know what a PR is. I mean, that's true. Yeah, and then more people still reaching out about Melissa Nathan. And then Jen Abel says, I just have to tell you something, and then I promise to leave you the fuck alone. Okay. And then, why did I need to see this, Stephanie? Why is this in here, Stephanie Jones? She would like me to know that Melissa Nathan said that Jen Abel should never leave her alone, and that Melissa is just going to the toilet. Pack it in. There's the smear campaign, yeah? All right. Here's a tweet from somebody that says, the way Blake Lively has managed to ruin her likability, respectability, and reputation with one press tour should really be studied because it's almost impressive. Oh my gosh. FYI, I've been saying for years that Colleen Hoover is terrible and her books glamorize domestic violence, toxic relationships, and abuse. My disappointment in Blake Lively is recent. And then somebody else said, it wasn't the plantation wedding for y'all because I checked out as soon as that happened. Right. So this is kind of showing that the negative public sentiment was very much organic, right? Okay. We saw something about this up there. We saw that up there. These are just like better images of the screenshots that we already read. So give me 1 second here. Okay. All right. Trying to figure out what I want to do here. I have two options because this stuff is still popping up here, but very slowly, right? So there's a couple of things coming out, but it's taking its sweet fucking time, just like it did last time. It was like 1 o'clock, 1:30 by the time everything loaded in. So I think I'll just go into this. Hold on, let me pull it up. No, that's not what I want. Sorry, I uploaded all my documents to Dropbox, so I just gotta pull them up real quick. So we're gonna take a different kind of path here. Okay. There we go. So we're just going to read the response to the motion for judgment on the pleadings, since we have time, apparently. And I have no idea how long it's going to be. So we probably have time to read through this. I need to pull up the declaration real quick. That is not what I wanted. Hang on. Let me mute myself for 1 second. Okay, we don't have the deck yet, just this part. So we'll go through it. And then by the time we're done with this, if we still don't have anything, then I might just do the response to the summary judgment in the morning. But why don't we get through this first? And if it does pop up, then we'll go ahead and push through. Okay. But I'm having to change my plan up a little bit just because things are moving a little slower than I'd hoped. And I'm out of water. So let me pour some more into this ice real quick. Okay. Sorry about that. Like I said, I hate having to like pause and shit, but the way that this is all coming out so late, it's kind of throwing me off. So Pandora Fox, thank you for the $5. Johnny and Justin were both falsely accused by women using the Me Too movement. I watched the trial. Amber Heard used Washington Post, live the New York Times. Thanks, Lauren. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. April, thank you for the $2. Go past the bar. Past the bar. That could take some years. Wow, that would take a while. Okay. I will definitely have to go to bed before that. Anyways, we're just going to read this one. This is the one I was going to read tomorrow night. But like I said, we're going to have to change things around a little bit. So just bear with me. I'm doing the best I can, especially given that it is almost 1 o'clock in the morning. So remember, this is the motion for judgment on the pleadings, which means they're saying that assuming that the things that Blake are saying are true, her arguments still fail as a matter of law. So, and there's going to be some of this that I'll have to go over with Omar like I did last time, but I'm going to do my best. And if there's something I don't understand, I'll just tell you I don't understand it, because I know there's going to be like 40 other people in the morning who can tell you what it means from their experience as attorneys. So, all right. Defendant's motion for judgment on the pleadings should be denied because it is an ill-conceived, ill-timed, and legally baseless effort to deny Blake Lively her day in court. Okay. First, defendant's arguments against the extraterritorial application of California laws cannot be squared with the unambiguous choice of law provision in the actor loan-out agreement, which applies to all disputes between the parties as if the contract had been performed entirely in California. The two, and only two, cases defendants cite in support of ignoring their own choice of law provision involved much narrower provisions and in any event are irreconcilable with well-established California precedent. Moreover, defendants should be stopped from advancing this argument because they have repeatedly argued for the application of California law in this litigation and responded to 3 different pleadings without challenging it, only to raise extraterritoriality. Extraterritoriality, yes, that's a hard word. Once their own claims had been dismissed on other grounds. Okay. Finally, even setting aside the choice of law provision, there is a plethora of evidence of California ties to every aspect of the conduct giving rise to the California claims, as set forth here and in the evidence Ms. Lively submits in support of her opposition to the motion for summary judgment, filed concurrently and incorporated by reference herein. So we haven't seen that yet, so they're going to reference that document that we're not yet able to read. So there's going to be some stuff I'm going to have to kind of improvise with here. Maybe we can do Mad Libs. Just kidding, I'm not going to do that. All right. One sec. I can't wait for you to get to page 24, but wait. Okay. Second, although defendant's exhaustion argument is waived, Ms. Lively fully exhausted her administrative remedies against each of the defendants, including It Is With Us movie, which she clearly alleged in the SAC, and is further evidence in the motion for summary judgment. Defendants object to Ms. Lively's filing of an amended CRD complaint against It Ends With Us movie before she filed the instant lawsuit, but the law is clear that the amendment exhausted her administrative remedy in full. Third, as for the retaliation claims under FEHA and Title VII, Ms. Lively more than adequately pled an adverse employment action and a causal link. Defendants made this same argument in their motion for summary judgment. However, and given the substantial record on retaliation that has been developed in discovery, Ms. Lively's arguments on retaliation are set forth in her opposition to the motion for summary judgment and incorporated by reference herein. So what they're saying about the substantial record on retaliation that has been developed in discovery, every single time something comes out, something gets unsealed, it's just more of the same. People doing standard PR practice and actually more and more of Wayfarer behind the scenes acting like a bunch of Care Bears, not trying to hurt her feelings, but trying to, protect themselves and stay positive and the best they can. It's ridiculous. So this, substantial record on retaliation that has been developed in discovery is just a whole bunch of bullshit. All right. The substantial record on retaliation is sitting in a room somewhere with the meet and confer that Ezra Hudson had with me, per what she told the judge, right? It doesn't fucking exist. Okay. Anyways. Fourth, defendant's argument against the defamation and false light claims, which defendants also moved against in their MSJ, are without merit. The requisite statements are not opinion, and neither the litigation nor fair report privilege apply. And finally, the conspiracy claim pleads all elements of conspiracy as set forth in the SAC, and additional facts supporting conspiracy are included in Ms. Lively's opposition to the motion for summary judgment, which are incorporated by reference herein. For all the foregoing reasons, the motion for judgment on the pleading should be denied in its entirety. Okay. On December 20th, Ms. Lively filed a complaint with the California Civil Rights Department that asserted 10 claims under California law, including sexual harassment, retaliation, failure to prevent harassment, retaliation, aiding and abetting the same, as well as others. Okay, we know that. They issued a right to sue letter on the same day, and then they closed her complaint. Remember that she likes to leave this out, but she declined an investigation, as she always does, and she refused to cooperate with an investigation later on when Wayfarer was trying to conduct an investigation, and then she actually tried to get it shut down. So it's a good look, right? Okay. 10 days later, on December 30th, Ms. Lively timely filed an amended complaint with the CRD, adding It Ends With Us movie as a respondent. The CRD issued a notice of amended complaint, which pursuant to California code, I'm not going to read all that. The amended complaint is deemed to have the same filing date of the original complaint. Okay. The original notice of case closure and right to sue issued in the case remains the only such notice provided by the CRD. Ms. Lively thereafter received corresponding right to sue notices from the EEOC as to both Wayfarer and It Ends With Us movie. Okay. On December 31st, Miss Lively commenced this action. That same day, defendants filed a complaint in Los Angeles Superior Court, asserting California claims against the New York Times based on their reporting about Miss Lively's CRD complaint. On January 16th, defendants filed a retaliatory lawsuit against Miss Lively in this court, asserting defamation-related claims under California law. And again, they're describing this as a retaliatory lawsuit. It was never found to be a retaliatory lawsuit. I just want to point that out because people like to read this and take it as fact, but that is just her interpretation of events. So, okay. Two weeks later, they filed an amended complaint, again asserting claims against Miss Lively under California law. Miss Lively moved to dismiss on the grounds that, among other things, the FAC was based on statements protected under California law by the fair report privilege, the litigation privilege in section 47.1. So the fair report privilege means, or in this context, meant that the New York Times couldn't be sued for defamation based on what they, wrote, because what they wrote was a report of something that was, put forth in an actual legal complaint or some sort of legal process. The litigation privilege means you can't sue someone for defamation based on what they, say in their lawsuit against you. Is the best way I know how to describe it. I know I'm not describing it perfectly, right? Okay, so if it's like a part of the litigation, a complaint or some sort of motion, you can't sue for defamation based on that. And then section 47.1 is that law in California, which is meant to protect victims from retaliatory lawsuits by abusers. So if the victim were to make a complaint of sexual harassment, assault, whatever, it's supposed to protect them from the retaliatory defamation suits by actual abusers. This should not apply to Justin Baldoni for many reasons. But this is the first kind of test of this law, and Blake Lively is going to be the one to sink it. So, at least that's what I think. So, and remember, that's what includes the treble damages and a lot of the stuff that people are up in arms about, myself included, is that she's saying that she should get triple damages, because he retaliated against her with his lawsuit based on her reports of sexual harassment. She has not proven that. That has not been, granted or ruled on by the judge in any way. So she'll continue to assert that, but it's not a done deal. So, okay. The court should conform the SAC to the evidence. As detailed further below, defendants' attacks on the legal sufficiency of the pleadings are meritless, but they are also pointless because even if defendants had identified any deficiency in the SAC's allegation, the court should conform the pleadings to the evidence in the summary judgment record and evaluate defendants' arguments on that basis. Measured against the evidence in the summary judgment record, defendants' arguments all fail. Okay. FRCP 15b2 permits amendment of the pleadings at any time to conform them to the evidence. That rule applies at the summary judgment stage, even to consider claims not expressly raised by the complaint. In considering a request to conform the pleadings, the key inquiry is whether allowing the amendment would prejudice the opposing party, and specifically whether allowing the party to conform will have disadvantaged its opponent in presenting its case. Here, conforming the pleadings to the summary judgment evidence does not require consideration of any new claim or new theory, only facts that were unavailable to Miss Lively without discovery. Footnote 4 here says, even if any of the evidence Lively seeks to rely on could be characterized as supporting a new claim, such a claim would still arise from a similar nucleus of operative facts and similar legal theories as the claims alleged, and would nevertheless satisfy the test for a conforming amendment. Okay. Defendants may prefer not to deal with those facts. Oh, shut up, cunt. Sorry. It's late. Defendants may prefer not to deal with those facts, but they cannot claim any cognizable prejudice from the court resolving this motion on the full summary judgment record. Defendants have long been on notice of Miss Lively's claims, and the evidence that Miss Lively now seeks to rely on emerged from discovery on those very claims. At this stage of proceedings, after substantial pretrial discovery has taken place, ignoring the entire panoply of facts developed during discovery makes little sense. Okay. The court should begin by conforming the pleadings to the evidence in the summary judgment record and proceed to consider the MJP on that record. Okay. Got it. One sec. AC3553 says, just joined and the first thing I hear is shut up, gun. Sorry about that. Sorry. Had to get one in, I guess. I've been behaving lately, kind of. Okay. All right. Ms. Lively exhausted her administrative remedies as to all defendants. Defendants assert that the SAC's Title VII and FEHA claims are insufficiently pleaded based on a failure to exhaust administrative remedies. That argument is meritless. Failure to exhaust is an affirmative defense that a defendant must plead and prove. Despite answering Ms. Lively's original, First Amended, and Second Amended complaints, only Ms. Abel ever asserted the defense, and even then only in response to the SAC. Even It Ends With Us movie, which has raised an exhaustion argument particular to itself, did not assert the defense in its answer. In other words, defendants have moved for judgment on the pleadings based on an affirmative defense they have not pleaded. And having litigated this case for nearly a year without raising exhaustion, defendants cannot now invoke it as a technical escape hatch. The failure to exert this affirmative defense waives their ability to invoke it. If anyone is entitled to judgment on the pleadings as to a putative exhaustion defense, it is Miss Lively, not defendants. All right. Moving on. In any event, Miss Lively more than satisfied her administrative remedies under both FEHA and Title VII. Okay. Under the FEHA, FEHA, the employee must exhaust the administrative remedy provided by the statute by filing a complaint with the CRD and must obtain a notice of right to sue in order to be entitled to file a civil action. Okay. Miss Lively's CRD complaint named, and we know all the Wayfarer parties, Jet Wallace, street relations, and all that, on December 20th. And then it was deemed simultaneously filed with the EEOC under the agency's work sharing agreement. Miss Lively thereafter received an immediate right to sue notice and commenced this action. When she amended her CRD complaint on December 30th to specifically identify It Ends With Us movie as a respondent, her original right to sue notice remained in effect. Okay. The original right to sue therefore related forward to Miss Lively's amended CRD complaint. And even if Miss Lively had only exhausted her remedies after filing her federal complaint, it is well established in this district that such post-filing exhaustion is sufficient. Defendants' extraterritoriality arguments fail. The California choice of law provision in the ALA expressly applies, and defendants are stopped from arguing otherwise. And I think the ALA is the actor loan-out agreement. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Defendants contend that the court cannot apply California's Fair Employment and Housing Act, Labor Code Section 1102.5, or Civil Code Section 51.9, the California statutes, because doing so would amount to an impermissible extraterritorial application. This argument misses the mark. The fundamental issue before the court is not the territorial reach of the California statutes, but the parties' contractual choice of law. And on that point, the parties' intent could not be clearer. The parties expressly agreed that California's substantive law would govern all disputes arising out of or relating to Miss Lively's services under the ALA. While the ALA is by and between It Ends With Us movie and Miss Lively's loan-out entity, Wayfarer, Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and Mr. Sarowitz are similarly bound by its choice of law provision as closely related individuals and entities, as are Tag, Nathan, and Abel. A non-party is closely related if its interests are completely derivative and directly related to, if not predicated on, the signatory party's interests or conduct. Yeah. It's 1 sec. In particular, Section 15.1 of the Standard Terms and Conditions, attached as Exhibit A to the ALA, provides that the internal substantive laws of the state of California, applicable to contracts made and performed entirely in California, shall govern the agreement's validity, interpretation, performance, and all other causes of action arising out of or relating to this agreement, or otherwise relating to the picture. Okay. I'm going to skim past this. Despite acknowledging the ALA's California choice of law clause, defendants attempt to sidestep it by invoking a general presumption against the extraterritorial application of California statutes. Their argument rests entirely on two non-binding federal district court decisions, which suggests that a California choice of law provision incorporates California's implied territorial limits by default. These cases are unpersuasive for several reasons. First, the choice of law provision at issue here is not one that presumably incorporates all of California law, including California's presumption against extraterritorial application of its law, because the choice of law provision expressly selects California law that applies to contracts made and performed entirely in California, mooting any question of how the law would apply to a wholly extraterritorial transaction. Okay. Second, in any event, the California Courts of Appeal has never instructed that a choice of law clause implicitly imports a presumption against extraterritorial application. Rather, California appellate courts have found that extraterritoriality concerns are irrelevant once parties have contractually agreed to be bound by a state's substantive law. Okay. A lot of this stuff I'm going to skim past and I'll go over with Omar later. Okay. Third, O'Connor and Wilson relied on a misapplication of the Ninth Circuit's decision. Okay. And this is just more case law stuff, so I don't want to, like I said, I want to go over that stuff with Omar. I don't want to go through it too much. The Ninth Circuit further explained that where a statute contains no express geographical limitations as to its application, courts may apply it to a contract governed by that state's law. Okay. We're going to move past this. Beyond the ALA itself, defendants' litigation conduct further confirms their shared intent for California law to govern. In their retaliatory counter lawsuit, defendants also invoked California law, asserting California constitutional claims against Miss Lively and other New York residents based on an article published in New York by the New York Times, and even purporting to assert such claims on behalf of an Illinois resident. That would be Steve Sarowitz. They did so because they understood that California law governed the parties' relationship, regardless of where the underlying conduct or the parties resided. Consistent with that understanding, defendants expressly relied on California law to oppose Miss Lively's motion to dismiss. And discovery in this case has proceeded on the same premise. Having conceded that California law governs the parties' disputes, defendants cannot now disavow the same choice merely because their counterclaims were dismissed. Miss Lively's hostile work environment and retaliation claims do not implicate extraterritoriality concerns because they have a sufficient nexus to California. Even setting aside the party's choice of law provision, this case does not involve an extraterritorial application of the California statutes. California's presumption against extraterritoriality applies only when the liability-forming conduct occurs entirely outside of California. Okay. Consistent with these principles, courts routinely apply FIHA, where the tortious conduct at issue occurred partially in the state of California and partially or mostly outside of the state of California. Okay. As one federal court in California explained, hiring someone in California with knowledge that they will suffer discriminatory conduct out of state creates a nexus between the in-state conduct and the discriminatory conduct, and FIHA therefore applies. Okay. One second. All right. Defendant's contention that the SAC includes no specific environments of California and no specific environments of California involvement in the allegedly hostile work environment falls flat. Miss Lively also alleged and now has developed through discovery, yeah, sure, facts showing that key decisions that enabled, escalated, and perpetuated the hostile work environment were made in California by executives supervising Miss Lively's employment from Wayfarer's California headquarters. Okay. Okay. For example, the record shows that Mr. Baldoni, the film's director and the Wayfarer's chairman, and Mr. Heath, Wayfarer's CEO, made critical pre-production decisions from California that enabled harassment to occur and left cast and crew without protections once filming moved to New Jersey. Are you stupid? What are you talking about? All right, hang on. Footnote 14 says, let's see, Wayfarer, it ends with us. Their residents of California have resided there during all relevant times. Okay, that's, nothing special there. Right. Indeed, in March 2023, a female producer warned Mr. Heath that Mr. Baldoni's dual role as both the film's director and chairman created an obvious conflict of interest and urged the company to engage a separate HR presence for the production. Huh? What? Okay, so what is this female producer that, apparently, did not work on this film, from what I can tell? What does this have to do with anything? I don't understand that. It could be just because it's late at night, but I think that's kind of random. Film's director and Wayfarer's chairman created an obvious conflict of interest. I don't see that, but okay. And it doesn't mean like they didn't do anything in response to that, warning or whatever, right? So they're going to have to, respond to that and say what exactly happened after that warning took place or what the nature of that actual warning was. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I can't really say too much about that. Somebody says, I think they're talking about Alex Sachs. Possible. Somebody says, are they talking about Claire Ayub again? No, I don't think so, dude. I don't think so. If so, that's embarrassing. I mean, okay. But if it's Alex Sachs, then I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what Alex Sachs said and how they responded to that. Because we don't know, what they may have done to kind of correct that or kind of make my words are failing me this late at night. So anyways. A separate HR presence for the production. What would that entail? I don't know. I'll have to think about that later when I'm rested. All right. Mr. Heath, acting from California, decided not to follow that advice. Dude, shut up. At the same time, Wayfarer declined to provide sexual harassment training to cast and crew after Redacted. A California-based entity informed Wayfarer that Redacted would not be responsible for the training, another decision made in California from where Wayfarer operates. Dude, they had sexual harassment training to cast and crew. We've established that. We have established that they did have sexual harassment training. What are you talking about? All right. These omissions guaranteed that once filming began, there would be no meaningful mechanism for Miss Lively or any other cast member to report inappropriate behavior. On your call sheet, every single day, they had a line to an outside entity that you could report these things to. Like, what are you talking about? They gave you the information on the sheet you got every day that you came to work. They had the information for you to report these things on it. The resulting on-set misconduct was a predictable manifestation of those California-based management decisions. No, it was your failure to report the made-up fantasy scenarios that you created, and also your failure to contact the resources at your disposal, which were given to you every fucking day. Other actions in California set the tone for harassment. Shortly after Miss Lively accepted the role of Lily Bloom, Mr. Heath remarked that Miss Lively would be birthed into the role, a statement that sexualized her and invoked female reproductive imagery to describe her professional contribution. What? What is it with this lady and her obsession with making babies a porn thing? Mr. Heath remarked that Miss Lively would be birthed into the role. So that being birthed into in that context, obviously anyone with a fucking brain knows they don't mean like the female reproductive process. Okay, hang on, hang on. So I'm looking at this. It says this can also mean, because I can't think of the right words, right? It can also mean to bring something forth, right? Or to cause something to start existing or to create something, right? So like I've heard plenty of people say the birth of, and they're referring to like some sort of principle or theory or movement. They're not actually like the birth of the Me Too movement, right? They're not actually talking about fucking babies popping out. You know what I mean? And it's definitely not a porno thing. Like, what is wrong with this lady? Stop trying to make babies perverted. Like, what's wrong with you? People use the word birth in another sense all the fucking time. Surely you're not that stupid. Like, what is wrong with you? It is too late at night for you to be this fucking stupid. Jesus. All right, one sec. We're down to 1069 on the docket. Still nothing though. Okay. I'm so tired of hearing about babies being somehow perverse by this lady. I mean, I swear to God. This objectification made from California, where Mr. Heath resided, signaled that Miss Lively's value was tied to her gender rather than her talent. Okay, as I just said, the birth of or birthing something, like causing something to take place or come into existence or to start something, that is entirely gender neutral when you're referring to something like a career, a role, a movement. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? God. During a pre-production Zoom meeting with producers, Mr. Baldoni, joining from California, lashed out at a female producer, Alex Sachs, for disagreeing with him and later sent an apology from California, acknowledging that he had mansplained and been dismissive. Later, when Ms. Sachs attempted to push back against Mr. Baldoni during filming, he reacted with explosive anger, slamming his hands onto the back of a chair while angrily yelling the producer's name. Now, I obviously don't... This is the first time I'm ever seeing this. I have no idea like where this is coming from or what actually happened there. But we're getting Blake Lively's account of this. And remember, Blake Lively said all that stuff about how Justin was like sniffing on her and all kinds of crazy shit. And then when we saw the actual footage, none of that happened. So I'm gonna reserve some judgment there. Obviously, Justin is very hard on himself. He's very, critical of himself and overly so to the point where you can tell, even in just like listening to his podcast, like he'll apologize for things where I'm like, I don't know if you necessarily like needed to apologize or think that deep into something. I don't know if you were really mansplaining something, you know what I mean? Like, but he may have felt that way. I don't know what they're talking about here when it says she attempted to push back against Mr. Baldoni during filming. He reacted with explosive anger. We saw on many scenes, like in many scenes in the movie, he was slamming his hands onto stuff when he got angry, right? On like in the rooftop scene, I think he is actually like hitting a chair. So I don't know when that took place, what the context was, etc. So I'm gonna, like I said, reserve judgment there. I think there's probably an explanation for that. So, yeah. Also, getting mad is not sexual harassment. Getting mad at someone else who is not Blake Lively is not sexually harassing Blake Lively. So, don't know what to tell you, babe. All right. But yeah, this does seem like something that was made for PR. So, okay. Also, by the way, mansplaining, not sexual harassment, may be annoying to some people, but even if he did mansplain something, he clearly apologized for it. So, right. The absence of reporting structures, there was no absence of reporting structures. You're an idiot. Left Miss Lively, Miss Sachs, and other cast and crew vulnerable to harassment. Miss Sachs explained that the only people who had authority to take corrective action were Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, an obvious conflict of interest and one that she had raised months earlier, which Wayfarer's California leadership ignored when it decided not to engage separate HR. Well, now I know you're not telling the truth because I've already seen where there were places for you to make a complaint and you refused to do so. Not only just like didn't do it, but you refused to do so when you were asked, do you want to make a complaint? Not by Jamie Heath or Justin Baldoni either. Yikes. When Redacted and Miss Lively complained to Redacted, who was also located in California, about Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's inappropriate behavior, Redacted took no corrective steps because Redacted role was limited to Redacted, a position Redacted had communicated to Wayfarer months earlier when it disclaimed responsibility for harassment training. What does this have to do with the judgment on the pleadings again? Notably, when efforts were finally made to address Miss Lively's and complaints by other female personnel, they were done via negotiation between Redacted, Wayfarer, and Miss Lively's personal counsel in California. These facts show that the harassment on set was the foreseeable extension of a hostile environment conceived in California, directed by California executives, and perpetuated through California-based decisions, policies, and omissions. Okay, so it was establishing. They're trying to establish that it was like related to California. I see. Moreover, defendants overlooked that Miss Lively alleges that the harassment did not end when on-location filming concluded. As the SAC makes clear, defendants continued to engage in harassing and retaliatory conduct long after production wrapped, including a smear campaign planned, coordinated, and implemented from California. Not quite clear on that, but okay. What she describes oftentimes either did not happen based on footage and hard evidence, or is actually standard PR. But, you know. Go ahead and subpoena my bank account. Under California law, retaliatory acts can constitute continuing harassment of an employee. Miss Lively's retaliation allegations confirm a direct California nexus. Okay. So we're just, still trying to establish connections to management in California, blah, blah, blah. We've heard this story before, so I'm not going to fucking do all that. Gearing up to hire the crisis PR manager, blah, blah, blah. Mr. Heath from California directed the preparation of a timeline of the alleged incidents. So that was their lawsuit. But okay. Dumbass. In addition, after Miss Lively filed her CRD complaint in December 2024, another California-based act, defendants launched a second wave of retaliation, executed in part through their California-based attorney, Brian Friedman, who made defamatory public statements and filed defendants' retaliatory counter-lawsuit from California. Each of these harassing and retaliatory acts, planned, directed, and executed from California, constitutes conduct subject to the California statutes. Okay. This lady is exhausting, by the way. Give me 1 second here. That's not what I wanted. Sorry, I'm checking something in the background. No, okay. The FEHA cases cited by defendants are readily distinguishable, and a close review reveals precisely why courts found no meaningful nexus to California in each of those cases. Okay, this is another thing I'm going to skim over here. Wayfarer is liable for harassment and retaliation as a joint employer. Wayfarer's attempt to shield itself from liability for harassment and retaliation on the grounds that it was not a party to the ALA fails. Both FEHA and Title VII extend beyond the directly employing entity, whereas here they are joint employers. For example, more than one entity shares or exercises significant control over an employee's work. So that would be Wayfarer, and also It Ends With Us movie. Okay. Here, the facts demonstrate that Wayfarer and It Ends With Us were Miss Lively's joint employers under Title VII and FEHA. While It Ends With Us movie is a party to the ALA, the evidence shows that Wayfarer exercised and retained extensive control over Miss Lively's work and working conditions in connection with the film. It Ends With Us movie was simply a single-purpose vehicle formed to produce the film, while Wayfarer financed the project, approved key creative and personnel decisions, and exercised control over cast and crew. For example, Wayfarer executives, including Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, approved all casting decisions, and Mr. Baldoni admitted his authority to hire, fire, and discipline all cast and crew as he sees fit. Actually, Blake was the one who decided to take authority to hire, fire, and discipline as she saw fit, but okay. Wayfarer acquiesced in and accepted Mr. Baldoni's assumption of the director role. Wayfarer also permitted both Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath to exercise supervisory authority on its behalf throughout production of the film. Indeed, testimony from various cast and crew members shows that Wayfarer was seen as their employer, carried out through the actions of Mr. Heath and Mr. Baldoni. Wayfarer also directed the schedule, location, and conditions under which Miss Lively performed her work. Wayfarer made all HR-related decisions for the film. They reviewed whether harassment prevention training would be provided under California law and ultimately decided to conduct this training for all cast and crew. Yeah. Didn't you just try to say that they didn't do that? What? Okay. Whatever. Courts routinely impose joint employer liability under FEHA and Title VII, where affiliated entities exercise significant control over an employee's work environment. Okay. Miss Lively's defamation and false light claims must proceed to trial. In each of their motions, defendants assert that Miss Lively's defamation and false light claims are subject to the litigation privilege, the fair report privilege, and the opinion doctrine. Sorry. Miss Lively responds to those arguments here, and both are incorrect. Defendants' opinion defense is meritless. The Wayfarer defendants assert that whether conduct amounted to sexual harassment or retaliation reflects unactionable opinion. As an initial matter, this ignores that defendants asserted verifiably false facts in connection with the statements. For example, their false assertion that Lively fabricated harassment claims as part of a ploy to take over the marketing of the film. Okay. That wasn't a false assertion. I mean, okay. An assertion which further falsely pinned responsibility on Lively for a marketing plan that was approved by Wayfarer from the start. No, babe. No. You took full control of everything and changed a whole lot of shit up. Okay. In any event, the argument is wrong as a matter of law because statements asserting that an individual made a false accusation or lied for financial or personal gain are capable of being proven true or false, and attributing specific and objectively verifiable motives for fabricating accusations of sexual harassment is not protected opinion. Okay. I'm just going to pass the case law. Defendants' arguments that their denials of a smear campaign are not defamatory because they lack a precise, definitive meaning fails for similar reasons. Contrary to defendants' characterization, the defamatory statements not only include denials of participating in a smear campaign, but also specific factual statements, such as that representatives of Wayfarer did nothing proactive nor retaliated and only responded to incoming media inquiries. Yeah. I mean, we've seen the text and everything that outlined what they were doing. And I know that this statement here doesn't fully cover it, but they have said that they were boosting positive stories and the like. So did nothing proactive. What they were saying in that context was we didn't, plant any negative stories and boost negative stories. Doesn't mean they didn't do anything proactive positively to help his reputation and help him defend himself. But she's going to try to paint that as, they lied about it, I guess. Whether the Wayfarer defendants retaliated against Lively, including by proactively shaping or planting negative stories about her, is objectively verifiable and, in fact, will be verified by a jury. Okay. The litigation and fair report privileges do not apply. The defamatory statements are unprivileged. Okay. Neither California nor New York's litigation privilege applies to attempts to litigate in the press. Shut up. She's still really mad at Brian Friedman. The defendants concede that neither California nor New York litigation privilege applies to the defamatory statements because Friedman made them outside of court. Okay, whatever, lady. We've talked about that to death. She's trying to get sanctions against him. She went after his law firm. I'm not reading any more of that. That's bullshit. Okay. Yeah, no, not doing that there. I'm not gonna like reread her weird cries for punishment of Brian Friedman. I'm just not. It's uninteresting at this point. It'll put me to sleep. All right. The SAC states a claim for conspiracy. Okay, it sufficiently pleads all the elements of a civil conspiracy. In any event, the summary judgment record puts this issue beyond doubt. Does it? Because I can't see the summary judgment record. All right. Defendant's motion for judgment on the pleading should be denied, and that's that. Hang on. Are you fucking kidding? Are you fucking kidding me? It is 1:30. It is 1:30 in the morning. And of course it finally came out. I told you guys, it was just going to take a long time to load. And I think there's going to be exhibits and shit that come with this. But here we are. The thing that I was waiting for all fucking night. Of course it is. Okay, I'm going to put a poll. We're going to put a poll in the chat here if you want me to read it now or if you want me to read it in the morning. Hang on. All right, vote on that, please. The motion, her response to the motion for summary judgment that people were afraid was not going to come out. It's out, like I said. Now, like it took until 1:30, just like it did last time. Jesus, fucking. Yeah, vote on that. No, look, I'll fucking stay up. I will. Like I said, I would. So, I think you should probably get some sleep. Well, we're not operating on what I probably should do. I'm asking what you want me to do. I'll give you guys 2 minutes. To vote on that. Let me save this. Yo, what is wrong with this thing? Oh, there we go. I'm going to upload this to my Dropbox while you guys are doing that. You know I'm about to sit here and read this shit, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I always do what I want. So I don't know why I ask. All right, put this in. Jesus. I really have 120 votes on this, so I'm going to give you another minute. But it's 70-30, so, you know. Response is 72 pages, Lisa. Tell you what, so what I think we'll probably end up doing is I'll go through this now and skim through a lot of stuff. And then in the morning, I'll come back and I'll do it properly at like 8 a.m. So we can do this now if you guys will bear with me while I do something real quick. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the name of this stream right now to what we just read instead of the summary judgment motion. And then I'm going to set up another stream for tomorrow morning right now. So that way, when we're done with this, I can just go to bed. So we can go through it now, but you're going to have to give me 2 minutes to set this up. So like I said, this I was so thrown off by the way things went tonight. So okay, I'm going to mute myself real quick while I take care of this. Don't mind me. Okay, sorry about that. So I set up the stream for the morning. So I'm going to set this one to redirect to that one as soon as we're done here. So you guys have the link for it. I'm going to start at 8:10, but I'm going to skim through this tonight, like I just said. So bear with me one sec. Okay. What's on there? Good there. Okay, I think I'm all set. Let me just make sure nothing else popped up here as far as exhibits and all that. No. So if anything else comes out, I'll just have to deal with it tomorrow. Thank God. Okay. Okay. This is my last 1 minute, I promise. Well, kind of. Promise. Okay, let's do this. Oh, oh my. Oh, okay. Well, I already so number 8 here. I already know all about this. Heath showed Lively a video of his wife naked without Lively's consent. Yeah, Heath's wife was, you know, you couldn't see her fucking parts. Can we just stop trying to make the birth stuff sexualized? It's creepy. All right. Anyways, hold on. I lost my thing here. There we go. Cool. Like I said, lots of skimming tonight, but we'll go through it properly in the morning. All right. In their latest effort to avoid accountability for the hostile environment they created during the production and marketing of Evidence with Us, Justin Baldoni and the Wayfarer parties asked this court to shield them from trial and deny Blake Lively her day in court by throwing the kitchen sink at Lively's sexual harassment and retaliation claims. So she said herself that she was going to file a motion for summary judgment. Was that her planning to try to deny them their day in court? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't say I was going to file a motion for summary judgment and like say you had that intention, right? And then say it was this is some sort of horrible, nefarious thing that they're doing, right? You also had that intention then, yes? All right. But defendants' scattershot theories collapse under the weight of the overwhelming evidence in documents and testimony from witness after witness that Baldoni and Heath redacted. Okay. Baldoni and Heath had a culture of hugging, probably something like that, which is what came up in the depositions, by the way, which they got away with redacted. This is not, as defendants claim, a story of minor annoyances fueled by creative differences. Oh, no. Not by creative differences, heinous, horrible things that she did to take over the film, but okay. But instead, one of a toxic environment in which, redacted, that Sony's representative remarked, redacted, numerous women have written or testified about feeling redacted, described Baldoni and Heath's behavior as redacted and wanted redacted, with Baldoni and Heath by the time the film premiered betraying their redacted brand. Baldoni and Heath refused to listen to what numerous women told them. Instead, their conduct and their entire defense has deployed a redacted. And then the way that she uses Darvo, it's lost all of its meaning. But okay. According to Dr. Jennifer Frade, who coined the term and submitted an expert report supporting Lively in this case. Okay. Expert reports, I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. Okay. Because I have my thoughts about expert reports in all of these cases for both sides. Okay. Defendants created a hostile environment, and when confronted with complaints, they abandoned Wayfarer's policies by refusing to investigate the concerns because Heath thought it would be better redacted. I'm sorry, I'm just going to go back to this for a second. Coined the term Darvo, right? And submitted an expert report supporting Lively in this case. Based on what? Her recollection of events, which has been, shown through film to not be what happened. Like, what? That's irresponsible. Okay. Defendants buried these concerns even though, and in fact, because Baldoni fully understood by November of 2023 that Lively's written complaints redacted. Yet, rather than attempting to clear their names with an investigation, defendants went on the attack, claiming they are victims of a bully who fabricated complaints to take over the movie, ignoring the irony that this reportedly hijacked film enriched the Wayfarer defendants by smashing all box office expectations. So the movie was a success. That doesn't mean she wasn't a heinous bitch. Those two things are not, mutually exclusive. The Wayfarer defendants have peddled their victimization narrative since the spring of 2023, including in response to Lively's concerns during production and then in reaction to her efforts to remediate her concerns. They relied on background conversations and leaks to friendly journalists. Okay, redacted. Marketing plan being followed by the rest of the cast, and then seeding, amplifying, and boosting negative content about Lively and her family. Yeah, okay, sure, whatever. Defendants repeat their mantra that the instantaneous avalanche of online attacks against Lively and the other women associated with the film was somehow an organic backlash to Lively, hoping to conceal the fact that their untraceable campaign was designed to appear organic. So the other women associated with the film, what avalanche of online attacks were there against the other women associated with the film, except for I can think of Isabella Ferrer, whose lawyer was terrible. And if you ask Omar how he felt about that, or go back and listen to what he had to say, her lawyer was a dickhead and tried to pass off a subpoena as harassment to the point where she got a lot of criticism for that. I think that some people on the internet take things too far, but that's not the fault of Justin Baldoni, right? And it's because people on the internet are unhealthy, and the way that some people will go out of their way to message somebody like Isabella Ferrer and say crazy ass things, that's the fault of the crazy person sending the crazy ass things. Okay. Let's see. And then also I think there's like Jenny Slate, who, to my knowledge, there was some allegations that she abused her boyfriend. So I feel like the backlash to Jenny Slate it wasn't born, will you, from Justin Baldoni's situation, right? Okay, so this bullshit is ridiculous, and none of it held a candle to what was going on with Blake, because Blake was actually out here consistently failing to act like a decent human being when marketing the film. So whatever. Like I said, we're going to skim over a lot of this tonight. I'm going to go over it in the morning, so we're going to miss some stuff. Okay. Defendant's litigation strategy has parroted their inversion of victim and offender. No, I'm not doing that tonight. Background: Baldoni and Wayfarer curated a misleading feminist brand. Fuck off. Okay, the Man Enough brand, right? So if you actually listen and you actually pay attention to what they do, it's about, getting rid of toxic masculinity and having masculinity in healthy ways. And a lot of that revolves around treating women as equals, and around, not hurting women emotionally, or the way that a lot of men do, or not centering men and like mansplaining and stuff like that. So it's more about trying not to, or trying to combat toxic masculinity than it is the feminist brand. I mean, some people would certainly call Justin a feminist. I wouldn't say that he's not a feminist, but what he's trying to do is to help men, express themselves in healthy ways, how to be masculine in a way that's not toxic. That's different than, curating a misleading feminist brand. That's way different. But you have to actually give a shit to understand that. So, all right. Baldoni sought to monetize his feminist brand through Wayfarer, which he co-founded and co-chairs with billionaire Sarowitz. Shut the fuck up. None of this is relevant to your stupid claims. All right. Sorry, it's almost 2 a.m. They wanted an A-list actress to headline the film, so they got Lively. She had potential interest. Obviously, they hired her, right? Oh, okay. Lively agreed to play Lily Bloom because she believed in the film's message of female empowerment, personally and professionally, and the importance of ending the cycle of abuse. Shut up, bitch! You didn't care about that at all. You didn't read the book. Even though you pretend you did, okay? And you didn't care about any of this at all. This is another project for you. Oh, this is based on a book that has, a pretty big fandom behind it. It's going to be popular. It's going to be a successful movie for me. That's why you took the gig, okay? Baldoni aggressively leveraged Lively's fame and her... Fuck you! Leveraged Lively's fame and her 20-plus years of experience in the entertainment industry and regularly solicited her feedback. Shut up. Okay, she demanded things and would not go forward unless they went her way, including the wardrobe. All right, let's not even talk about the wardrobe. I'm not a fashion icon. You guys know that, okay? But damn, those outfits were ugly in the movie. All right. Wayfarer policies... redacted harassment, whatever that means, but its leaders disclaimed responsibility for creating a safe workplace on set. We kind of went through some of this in the response to the judgment on the pleading, so I'm not gonna go through all that again. Not to mention most of it's redacted. So before production, Sachs expressed, and this is Alex Sachs, who they were just talking about, saying that he angrily lashed out at her or whatever. but we don't really know the context for that. And they're going to get a chance to respond to this and explain. Okay. Let's see. Wayfarer and Baldoni fostered a hostile work environment for women. Yeah. No. All right. But his misbehavior continued. Baldoni consistently yelled at Sachs and exhibited rageful yelling or interrupting reactions when Sachs spoke. I highly doubt that. I look forward to their response to this. Sachs recounted one time when Baldoni, upset, came up behind where she was sitting and yelled and then slammed his hands on the chair next to her and stormed away. Okay. She immediately warned Heath and Giannetti, seated behind her, that she would walk off the movie if Baldoni behaved that way again. Okay. I just wanted to say this. I just got a message from Melissa on Venmo. Thank you very much, Melissa. I really appreciate that. That's really awesome. It helps a lot. Because I'm gonna be trying to go out to this trial, and I'm gonna have to stay in New York for like the entire month of March into early April. So this helps out. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I don't like to, crowdfund or anything like that, but I just do want to say thank you because it's gonna help me, get out there and do all that. So, okay. Let's see. That's a topic for another time because we had to get through this, but. As the only woman and non-Wayfarer producer on the set, Sachs felt sidelined by Baldoni and Heath, and she also observed Baldoni being very dismissive of the film's screenwriter Hall, who he did not seem to respect as a female voice on the team and on a movie like this that felt especially bad. I seriously fucking doubt that Justin Baldoni is the man they're describing here. Okay, not only that, but this is not sexual harassment, so life's hard, get a helmet. Right. Heath insisted on a meeting while Lively was undressed and gawked at her body. This is all redacted, but we know exactly what they're referring to here. That's not what happened. He never gawked at her body, and she herself said, "I know you didn't mean to cop a look." Like, what the fuck? Baldoni sexualized and objectifies women on set. So we've seen the messages from Blake to Justin saying she wanted the appearance of her character to be more sexy, the clothing to be more sexy, right? And when he says the outfit is sexy, she's saying, Baldoni sexualized and objectified me. You know what I mean? Fuck off. Okay. And we've seen the video footage where, and you can't really tell what they're saying too much in the background there. It's a horrible, task to try to discern the audio in that clip because there's so much going on there. And it's hard. But we saw Jenny Slate and Blake Lively, similar things. He was saying the outfits, look sexy or whatever. But if you say to the director, you want your character's outfits to look sexy, and then he says they do. Okay. All right. On another occasion, Baldoni told Slate that, redacted. Slate testified that, still redacted. Okay, so we can't really read anything here. During a car ride with Lively, her security detail, and her assistant in April 2023, Baldoni, it's redacted. But we know that he spoke about this in his deposition. And so he was talking about his experience where a woman that he was with violated his boundaries and did not have his consent to proceed, but she did anyways. And she framed this as he didn't always get consent before having sex, as if he's some sort of rapist. Yikes. Okay. Baldoni added gratuitous sexual content and spoke about his sex life. So we've been over this as far as the book goes. There's a lot of that in the book. Okay. And then Sony were the ones who wanted more of the sexual content. As far as speaking about his sex life, if she is friendly with him, saying they're friends, and she's talking about her life in that very personal way, and then he reciprocates as their friends, then okay, you initiated that sort of, relationship where you can talk as if you're friends and share your stuff with each other. And we all saw her text messages to him, which were very flirty and kind of gross. So no, I'm not accepting that. Baldoni did not explain why, redacted. A lot of what he was talking about, as we know, was also relating to the film and his vision for the film and the sex scenes that they were supposed to film. Okay, you have to talk about it. You have to talk about sex if you're going to have a sex scene in a movie and you sign up for it. Especially if it's a film based on a book that's full of sex scenes. Okay, you just got to grow up and get over it at that point. I'm sorry. adding like sexual content into a movie about people who have sex, that's not a violation. Okay? Jesus. Baldoni's motives for adding these scenes, including whether to create additional opportunities for intimacy with Lively, are disputed. When Lively challenged the additions, Baldoni redacted, and we've seen in the motion for summary judgment that she actually added unscripted kissing into a scene with him. Baldoni was fixated with Lively's weight. We know that's not true. Okay, there was a lift scene. He asked the trainer how much she weighed. He needed to know how much he was going to have to lift. Again, life's hard, get a helmet. Baldoni and Heath pressured Lively to perform unscripted nudity. The birth scene did not call for the simulation of nudity, but on the day of filming, May 22nd, 2023, okay, simulated nudity is an actual nudity. As the other actor in the scene has publicly testified to the fact that she was not nude. She had shorts on, and she was covered by a gown. Heath showed Lively a video of his wife naked without Lively's consent. Okay, so she saw a still shot of them with their baby. No genitals were showing. They were talking about a scene that they were going to film, and that was the director's vision for the scene. Get over it. Baldoni improvised physical intimacy without Lively's consent. Again, no. Her description of the dance scene is entirely unreliable. We know that. Behind-the-scenes footage, which the defendants released to the press, captures Lively's visible discomfort, including her leaning and pulling away from Baldoni, and repeatedly suggesting that their characters should just talk. So the push and pull in that scene was they were doing this build-up to where they were supposed to like almost kiss, but not quite. So the leaning in and pulling away, that was all part of that. All right. Lively and other women repeatedly reported concerns about Baldoni and Heath, which Wayfarer failed to investigate. Yeah, no. There were no HR reports made, no sort of formal complaints made. Sony confirmed as much. Bitching to your friends about not liking the director is not reporting concerns. Okay. And of course, a lot of this redacted. This will be, probably a lot of this will be unredacted, but it'll take a little bit, like a week or two. I don't know. Talking more about Jenny Slate. Okay, Sachs immediately texted Giannetti that we have real issues. We need to replace our director and restrict Heath's access to the set. Okay, Sachs, and we don't know what this is about. And this is in May 2023. Sachs escalated Slate's concerns directly to Baldoni and Heath, repeatedly encouraging them to investigate because she wanted it to be taken seriously and to create a more comfortable work environment for everyone going forward. Wayfarer did not investigate the complaints. Instead, Heath decided redacted, Baldoni redacted, and Sarowitz redacted. Instead, Sarowitz suggested that redacted. And again, we're not privy to like whatever is in here, but we can kind of, gather some information from what Steve said in his deposition, which I'll have to take a look at in the morning because I can't think of it off the top of my head. But I know they asked him a lot about this kind of thing, and he's saying like, no, I'm not aware of any complaints. And he's not, hands-on like that all the time. Like he wouldn't be the person that would be investigating complaints or anything like that, or taking complaints. Let's see. Again, it's really hard for me to form an opinion without the context here. So, I mean, I don't really know what to say about this. And I don't know anything about Alex Sachs, so I don't want to be like, Alex Sachs is a liar. You know what I mean? Like, maybe she interpreted things in a way that made her uncomfortable. I don't know. So I don't want to immediately be like, fuck Alex Sachs. You know what I mean? Because I don't know anything about Alex Sachs. And I don't know what happened with her because a lot of it's really redacted. And I don't know what they were fighting about or arguing about or what he was supposedly yelling about. I don't know what the story is. I don't know. But, Alex Sachs has never come forward with any accusations that were then proven on video to be false. So I'm not going to give her like the Blake Lively treatment where I'm like, well, I'm not going to take you seriously because I know that you're lying. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'll tell you, like, I don't really know what happened there. Maybe something upset her. Maybe something could have been handled differently. I don't know. It doesn't sound like she was ever sexually harassed. I'll put it that way. And even if so, which would have been horrible if she had been, but it doesn't sound like that ever happened. That does not mean that he did anything to Blake Lively. So, okay. All right. Somebody says, notice where she puts the quotes in the replace our director. It doesn't actually say she said it's needed. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Yeah, I know who Alex Sachs is, but I'm saying I don't know anything about Alex Sachs. So like she's not like a famous actress or something that I would like I've seen in other things or seen interviews with or whatever. So I don't want to like harp on Alex Sachs and be like Alex Sachs is the devil. You know what I mean? So I don't have anything bad to say about Alex Sachs. I'm just saying I don't have the whole story here, and so I have no idea. I don't know what to make of it. All right. Um. Okay. There's lots of redactions. Before phase 2, Lively negotiated protections, and again reported her concerns. Okay, whatever. Lively decided she could not, nor expect others to return to a hostile environment. Okay, whatever. The CRA required the presence of an intimacy coordinator. Now, remember, Blake refused to meet with an intimacy coordinator in the beginning. Whatever. And she made Justin meet with the intimacy coordinator about these scenes with sexual content that she says she now felt so uncomfortable about, but she refused to meet with the intimacy coordinator, which is why I'm like, you're completely disingenuous. I don't believe what you're saying. Okay. It's talking about that all hands meeting. Sony exercised its right to edit its own version of the film with Lively's help. Okay. Production of the film resumed from January 5th until February 9th when post-production work began. So that's a nice way of putting it. When she basically said, this is what has to happen or I won't continue. And so then Sony would then have to comply with that. But all right. Of course, there's some stuff here we can't see. So I'm open to whatever. I might be wrong about that. But during the strikes, Lively received a rewrite of the rooftop scene from her husband. I mean, I don't know what else would go there. Okay. Accordingly, and with Sony's support, encouragement, and facilitation, Lively didn't do anything. It's redacted. Cool. Unlike Baldoni, Lively has a creative license to things that happen in real life, not just on the movie set. All right. Sony and Wayfarer develop a plan to market the film as a story of female empowerment, which Lively and the cast follow and support. Okay. You know what I'm thinking of as I'm like reading the kind of context clues they're giving to hint at stuff that is behind the redactions, which almost never say what they imply they're saying, right? Because they once implied that I was on a list somewhere that was redacted and then oops, they got caught. Because I was not. But you know, they are just like misleading with that. But I'm thinking about the crew and Andy's documentary and how scared they must be feeling right now because I know that they spoke out and maybe said some things that she did not want to get out there. She does not want that documentary coming out before this lawsuit happens, before the trial happens. And so I'm thinking about them and how their voices are being, you know, shut down, and she's scaring them out of speaking, and how she's kind of like creating this narrative with her buddies, like her sister and her friend, who she was like a pre-existing, very close friend of her. And it's just kind of sick, you know? All right. The Wayfarer defendants responded by disparaging and discrediting Lively. All right. Despite admitting that her feelings about her experiences were genuine. Dude. Okay. Despite admitting that her feelings about her experiences were genuine. That's like, I believe that you believe it. You know? Like, that doesn't mean anything. Okay. He recast the complaints as misunderstandings, portrayed himself as the victim, and began an unyielding campaign to assassinate Lively's character. Yeah, that's not exactly what happened, is it? She ran to the New York Times and reframed things in a way that was not exactly truthful and completely excluded a lot of context that was very embarrassing for them when it came out. So, in truth, the redacted who were talking about and disparaging Lively were Heath and Baldoni. And they're allowed to talk shit about you if you're being terrible to them. Yeah, I don't know about any of that because it's redacted. Okay. The Wayfarer defendants hired crisis experts to bury Lively. We know all about that. I'm going to skim through this shit. Like I said, we'll go over this more in full in the morning, but yeah. Hold on. We don't need to read more about the scenario planning and shit tonight. We really don't. As the film premiered with massive success, defendants launched a social combat plan against Lively. Well, okay. I've heard enough. Okay. I'm trying to just get through this stuff about the fake smear campaign. In response to the CRD complaint, they continued their retaliatory campaign with a baseless lawsuit and defamatory statements. Well, just like you are protected by the litigation privilege, so are they. Okay. Following the success of the film, Lively was on track to command what? The Times 100 list? Jesus. Sorry, I'm just reading this alongside a rambling 168-page timeline. Shut up. I mean, this is redacted. I can't really tell you much. And then we get into the arguments. So it says Lively sexual harassment claims must proceed to trial. And I always thought this will proceed to trial. I do think that the sexual harassment claims will go to trial. I don't think they're going to settle on them. I did have kind of a feeling that the smear campaign defamation stuff might be dismissed. We'll see about that. We'll see. Okay, so I don't want to go through too much of this because, like I said, I'm going to go over it in the morning. But I'll skim over like the headlines and stuff, or not the headers. Heath's behavior alone warrants denying the MSJ. Okay. Let's see. The Wayfarer defendants fostered an environment laden with gender bias. Jesus. These are the people you choose to make these arguments against, really? Oh my God. So now it's sexism. Okay. The male feminist they make fun of for being too emotional and too in touch with his feminine side is the sexist. Okay. Baldoni directed his personal sexual comments at Lively directly, including by, and then of course it's redacted. The nature of the film's material is no excuse. Well, it is if it's regarding the sexual content in a scene. Okay. Lively may be a movie star, but on the set of the film, Heath and Baldoni were her bosses with a total consolidation of power as lead actor, producer, director, co-chairman, president, and CEO. Obviously not, because she was able to very easily force them to give her everything that she wanted. What were they going to do? Like throw their whole movie away, start over? They spent all that money on it. Like, what were they going to do? That studio couldn't afford that. Or maybe they could, but Sony wouldn't want to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It wasn't a good idea. Wayfarer and It Ends With Us movie are strictly liable for supervisory conduct. Again, we'll get into that in the morning. The retaliation counts must proceed to trial. So this is the stuff that I'm kind of questionable about, where I'm like, I don't know if that must proceed to trial. So if anything gets, thrown out, I think it'd be that. Okay, the record easily establishes a prima facie case of retaliation. Nah. I'm going to go over that in the morning. I've heard so much about the publicist tonight that I'm going to skim past that stuff. The Wayfarer defendants subjected Lively to a continuous pattern of adverse actions. Let's see. I'm going to skim through that. They obstructed Lively's attempts to report and remediate workplace harassment. No. No. She consistently refused to report things and then also refused investigations. The Wayfarer defendants impugned Lively's reputation. No, babe, you did that yourself. Okay, so her maligned public image, when she, her public image took a hit when she was, marketing her alcohol brands with drinks named after the abuser in the film, and people, the domestic violence survivors who make up the larger fan base of the book, didn't like that. It did not have anything to do with a planned and implemented press and social media campaign. You did that shit. Okay? Nobody forced you to do that. Okay, defendants filed a baseless and retaliatory lawsuit. We've heard all about that. Defendants failed to produce admissible evidence of legitimate, non-retaliatory reasons for the sustained course of retaliatory actions. Okay. I'll read over that in the morning. Defendants wanted to bury Lively for speaking out against them. Shut up. The failure to prevent count must proceed to trial. Okay. And again, this stuff I'm going to go over in the morning. Because I've heard a lot about FIHA and all that as well. So I'm just going to over this to the employee thing. Lively's contract claims must proceed to trial. I've read about the ALA and all that. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Okay. The false light claim survives because California law applies. Defamation claim must proceed to trial. Defendants are not entitled to summary judgment on the conspiracy claim. Okay. Sarowitz is not entitled to summary judgment on the false light or conspiracy claim. Okay. The MSJ's attempt to cast Sarowitz as an aloof financier cannot be squared with the record. Sarowitz is a close confidant and friend of Baldoni and Heath and is Wayfarer's co-chairman and redacted. He was intimately aware of the complaints of sexual harassment at the time they occurred, visited the set, participated in the promotion of the film, knowingly paid for Wayfarer Studios' PR and crisis services used to carry out the campaign, and personally drafted negative narratives about Lively. Can you show us where he was intimately aware of any complaints of sexual harassment at the time they occurred? The Wayfarer party's damages arguments fail. Conclusion, obviously they want this denied. Okay, like I said, we'll go over this in full tomorrow morning. I did just want to skim through that because so many of you guys stayed. God, over 1,000 of you up here until 2 a.m. So, like I said, we waited for that all night. So I just wanted to make sure that we at least touched on it. If anyone in chat is going to be up for a little while, if you could do me a favor and put in the comments after the live is over, refresh, and put in the regular comments of the video timestamps for when we started reading the response to the judgment on the pleadings, and then when we started reading this, I would appreciate that because I am too tired to do it right now, and I'm gonna have to wait till the morning before I can put that in the description. So I would appreciate that. I gotta go to bed, and I will be back in 6 hours, hopefully with more brains. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I think I read all these, didn't I? Wait, Lily May, thank you for the 15. Thank you, Lauren. Good day, all. Just wanted to hear Lauren say good day. Good day, yeah. Carrie Shedden, thank you for the 10. Thank you for staying up. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. What's happening to me? I'm so tired. Shannon Nicole, thank you for the $20. Thank you, Lauren. No, thank you. LJ 5064, thank you for the $2. This is the actual motion for summary judgment, like for real. Yes, this is the response to it. She didn't file a motion for summary judgment. She did file a response to Justin's. So yes, this was it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, guys. I will see you at about 8:10, 8:15. Also, when I end this stream, it's going to take you to the one for tomorrow morning, so you'll have the link to that. Appreciate it. I will see you guys very soon. So, bye.